Welcome to the Tim Castle Show, where I sit down with courageous individuals doing inspirational things around the world. Whether it's AI, crypto, mindset, leadership, negotiation and sales, I've got you covered. I sit at that nexus of disruption and change. I'm loving every second of this. I really do believe this is the most abundant time that we've lived in. And if we harness what's going on correctly, we can build businesses that are going to transform our future and your lives. So come with me on this journey, meet the people. I pull back the curtain and I find out who they really are. I started off building this podcast for my sons as something they could look back on later in life and see the conversations that their dad had with people that he respected and admired, but most of all, get the lessons. And now I'm sharing those lessons with you and the reasons that people had done things, the ambition, the passion, and the hardship and their vulnerabilities. And I actually really enjoy it. This is one of the most special times as I get to sit down with people that I really would love to chat to and ask them the questions that are burning in my mind. If you are the same as me and you're pushing the limits and the edges of what you do, please like and subscribe to the show. It helps me tremendously to get new guests on the show and expand that reach so we can help more people together. Profound, profound, profound. Do you ever just meet some people and you just know it was meant to be, that you were meant to be meeting that exact person at that time? Hearing those words, the way they speak, what they're saying, their message, their intent. Well, I just had one of those conversations with Will Guidara. He's a restaurateur and he used to run 11 Madison Park. Then he owned 11 Madison Park and he took it from a 2-star brasserie all the way up to a 4-star restaurant with 3 Michelin stars and the accolade of winning #1 restaurant in the world. This conversation is going to blow you away, and more importantly, Will's book, Unreasonable Hospitality. The idea of giving people more than they expect. It's going to blow your mind. It's something that I think we all can take something from because we're all in the service industry. We're all working with people. And it brings that humanity back in and makes it cool to care. And I think it's hit me hard and I love it. And I absolutely think this is a conversation that if you spend 20 minutes, 30 minutes just taking your time with, just enjoy it. Just enjoy it. And really, you'll get something from this that will give you a smile bigger than this on my face. I love it. I love Will's message. And I'm so thankful to him for sitting down and having this conversation because it is going to change lives. Take it away, Will.
Let's do it.
I'm literally over the moon. I'm so grateful for you doing this. Not only because you've done it when you've just had a 1-month-old, but I mean, just to get you on the show to share this message with people. Like I would say, I mean, this show, the reason I started it was to talk to courageous people doing inspirational things around the world. And to me, you are the epitome of that. And
dude.
Like seriously, man, I read this book and it spoke to me. It spoke to me. It touched my heart. Like, I think as much as this book is, it's about being seen, appreciated, heard, cared for, making an impact. There's that finesse, enchantment. There's that kind of lasting memories. And like what you say in the book, it's all about making a connection. And I'm really appreciative to make this connection with you today.
Oh, brother. Well, I'm thrilled to be here, and it's a pleasure. I mean that sincerely, and I'm excited for the conversation.
Let's do it. Nice one. Well, welcome to the show, Will Guidara.
Thank you so much, man. I'm happy to be here.
I'm very happy that you could be here too. As I turned the last pages, actually on audio, for your book, Unreasonable Hospitality, I just knew that I had to reach out to you. I had a calling in my heart. I just knew I had to try and get in touch with you. I had to try and get you on the show. You were the exact person that I knew was going to change lives and to be able to impact people on this show when they hear your message. I think anybody, I mean, as an author myself, as someone in sales, as someone that's an entrepreneur, any industry, any part of this in business, anyone that works with people, if you pick this book up, it will impact you in ways that you won't believe. And I think I just know that the language you've used, I was just so impressed with the way you've crafted these messages to hit with such depth. Like, how did you start your book writing process, and what kind of got you on this journey?
You know, it's such a good question because I was given the gift of, well, support and then remarkable advice. And so my publisher on this is Simon Sinek, who you probably know from Start With Why or The Infinite Game. And I got to know Simon because years ago, he came and had dinner at 11 Madison Park on a night that I wasn't there, but I heard about it. And I was traveling or something, and I called the restaurant and I said, "Hey, make sure we blow this guy's mind tonight because I want to be friends with him." I'm so I've always believed, not dissimilarly to how you chose to reach out to me, that like sometimes you just need to pursue a relationship with someone, whether it's going to end up happening or not. You need to at least try. And after that dinner, I somehow found his email and reached out and had a cup of coffee with him and slowly started becoming friends with him. And I asked him to speak at the Welcome Conference, which is my hospitality conference that I host on an annual basis. And the first time I asked him, I haven't told this story in a podcast yet. This is a kind of funny story. He kind of gave me the answer, which is like no without saying no. Or he was like, let me and the team think about it. But then like a month later, he was at our restaurant, EMP Winter House in Aspen, under
Right.
someone else's name. He was not there under his own reservation name. But after his dinner, I started sending I probably sent his TED talk to all of my managers in the company because I was inspired by it. I wanted them to find inspiration in it as well. And so the moment he walked in, they recognized him. Someone texted me and said, "Simon's here." And I said, "Comp his dinner from me. Like, make sure he knows that I comped his dinner." And they asked for the check. The waiter came over and said, "Will Guidara took care of your dinner tonight." And apparently he leaned over to his sister and said, "Well, I guess I'm speaking at the Welcome Conference."
You sealed the deal. Yeah.
and so then Simon and I became close. And over the years, he kept on kind of encouraging me to write a book. And it was during COVID that I finally found the time and the space to do it. And with his kind of confidence in me that I had a message worth sharing, I decided to do it. Now, that's all well and good. I'm not a writer. I've written plenty of cookbooks, but this is the first book I've written. And you know that scene in a movie where you see the person sitting down in front of the blank computer screen and they type the first line and then they delete it and it's like the entire narrative. And I was
Right.
very fearful that would be the case. But Simon bought me a stack of index cards, and those of you who are listening can't tell I'm holding a stack up right now, and a rubber band and a Sharpie. And he said, "Just carry these with you wherever you go, and every time you just start thinking about the book, and every story or lesson that you want to put in it, just write a few words on an index card to symbolize that story or lesson. Do that for a few months, and then once you feel like you have enough stuff there, clear out a room in your house so that it's just a lot of floor space, and take an entire day and lay out all the cards and reorganize them until you kind of have a first pass at the chronological order in which you'll share those stories and lessons." And then I had an outline. And it's remarkable advice for a book, but it's remarkable advice for any creative process, because I believe that once you have an outline for any idea, it becomes so much easier to bring it to life. It's when you're looking at a blank page that you can feel overwhelmed. But he gave me this hack to get to the outline stage. And then from that point forward, that was the fun part.
It starts to flow. Yeah, the structure is so important, and I've never heard it quite explained like that before. So that's really helpful and going to help a lot of people who who have got that urge to write a book but aren't quite sure how to start the process. I think
Hmm.
beautiful way to open that. So the title, Unreasonable Hospitality. In your mind, can you define unreasonable hospitality for us?
Yes. I believe when you look across disciplines, and listen, I got pushback from the publisher because the word unreasonable has mixed connotations. But whenever you look at anyone that's remarkably successful in any field, whether it's tech or design or um, anything artistic, athletic, creative, from a business perspective, they found success because they are relentless in
Mhm.
their pursuit of whatever that product is. They are willing to do whatever it takes to bring the product to life and to make it its most fully realized self. They are completely unreasonable in realizing a vision. And for me, that same level of relentlessness, that same desire to do whatever it takes, that same unreasonableness should be applied not just to product, but to people, to those we work with and to those we serve. It should be applied to bringing intention and creativity to creating the conditions where people can connect to making people feel welcome. And I mean, the book is called that because I wrote those two words down in a cocktail napkin years and years ago to define the impact I wanted to make within my industry. But I believe, and it's kind of the thesis of the book, that everyone, regardless of what business you're in, can make the choice to be in the hospitality industry. It's simply about making the choice to put hospitality, to put people, to choose to be intentional in pursuit of relationships at the center of every decision. It's simply about making the choice to be just as unreasonable in your pursuit of hospitality as you are in pursuit of every other facet of your business.
Wow. Wow. Yeah, when you put it like that, it's such a good example of the word unreasonable. I think it really stands out. And when you then unpack what hospitality is, and you can see that through the lens of various industries, not just the service industry, or not just the service industry from the lens of dining, is powerful. I also love that story when you're sat at the award ceremony, you don't realize you're on camera. You realize that you've come in 50th place, and the whole room's watching you, and it struck you that you hadn't changed the conversation yet, and your mission was to then change the conversation. Like, what do you think in terms of your determination? It was fueled. Can you speak to that, and how someone that's doing excellent things in that category, say they're in a category, they're in business, they're doing excellent things, they're doing all the right things, how can they apply unreasonable hospitality to that to then elevate beyond and thus kind of make a bigger impact?
Right? There's almost two questions there, right? That the first revolves around this idea that if you want to be great at something, there really is no destination. It's not a destination that you're pursuing, it's an approach that you're choosing to take.
Mhm.
Um, where I mean, you wake up every single day trying to be a little bit better that day than you were the day before. And that's why once we had 4 stars and 3 stars, we were still pushing because the accolades are beautiful things and they're beautiful for a number of reasons. A, for affirmation. I don't care what people say, that sense of external affirmation that the work you're doing is paying off is a beautiful gas tank filling reminder that the efforts are being acknowledged.
Mhm.
But B, because it's good when you're managing a group of people to have something to strive for. So the accolades are important for a multitude of reasons. But if the only reason you're doing the work is to get the accolade, then I don't actually think you're pursuing it in the right way, because then you have the accolade and then what, you're done, you've achieved everything.
Right.
No,
Right.
it's the feeling of getting better and motivating a group of people to push alongside of you, to work collectively to accomplish the spirit of your group endeavor. I think that's motivating. And so I think when you come in 50th place in the world,
Mm.
right? Like, one could say perspective should tell you like that is something to celebrate.
Mhm.
But, my dad, when I was a kid, gave me so many quotes, words that I've lived by ever since. But one of them was, adversity is a terrible thing to waste. That you can't control what life throws at you, but you can control how you react to it, how you use it to fuel you, to push you, what you choose to learn from it, how it makes you a better version of yourself. Um, that is true. In the darkest moments, I think I've learned the greatest lessons. That said, sometimes you need to manufacture adversity just to give you something to react to.
Right. To
Did
push
you
you.
ever see
It's,
the
yeah.
did you see the show The Last Dance, the documentary
Yes.
about Michael Jordan?
Yes. Yes.
My favorite part is how someone would knock into him during a game and he would convince himself that the guy did it on purpose just to create stakes that he could react to.
Yeah.
Um, I think we always need to be looking for things to push us. And for sure, coming in last place, in reality, that didn't require me like manipulating the situation to push me. I genuinely was upset about it. But so,
Mhm.
okay, that's the answer to one question. I just believe no matter where you are on your journey, there's always room for improvement. And you need to ask yourself, am I looking at excellence as a destination, or is excellence the journey? Because if you're looking at it as the destination, I believe that's a flawed approach to take.
Mhm.
And anyone that wants to challenge that, read The Infinite Game by Simon Sinek, because I think it's a beautiful expression of that entire viewpoint. The second question is, how can hospitality push people to the next level? Well, the US used to be a manufacturing economy. The entire world was. And now we're a service economy, and dramatically so. In America, service industries represent more than 3/4 of our GDP. Globally, it's more than 65%. So that means, statistically speaking, if you're listening to this, you and I do the exact same thing. We are in the business of serving other people. And I believe that making the choice to be in the hospitality industry can supercharge any service business. I genuinely believe that, not just by making the people you're serving happier and making it more likely that they'll return to your business, which will increase your bottom line, but perhaps most profoundly, by reinforcing the culture for the people that work with you, so that people not only feel a greater sense of empowerment and are willing to bring more of themselves to the work, but you're giving everyone on your team the gift of being able to be energized by giving gifts to other people.
Mhm.
And that was all at 30,000 feet, so we should probably unpack a lot of it. But
I love
I
it.
I do believe it's like the simplest lever to supercharge a business, by choosing to prioritize hospitality as much as any other facet of the
Mhm.
organization.
I do. I literally love all of what you've just said. But I mean, yes, you're right. There's a lot in there, and there's a lot about how when you're giving an outsized returns and like the impact, like you talk about 95/5, like doing all of these strategies that you've done. But really, it's the mission. It's bringing everyone together on that journey, and what you're giving to your people. That, and then you're also talking about the fact that giving to other people makes you feel good. I think in the book you say it's a selfish thing, because actually it's really cool
Yes.
to give to people because it makes you feel good. Um, like, what would giving someone? I mean, I've come across this in business, and I've seen this in other teams. But like, when someone is feeling that sense of ownership, like, why is that a good thing?
So there's a retired naval captain named David Marquet who said that in most organizations, the people at the top have all of the authority and none of the information. Well, the people on the front line have all the information and none of the authority. Unreasonable hospitality, the entire approach is meant to help level that gap to a certain extent by giving more authority to the people on the front line that have more information. Um, we did that through the Dreamweaver program, where we literally gave the people in the dining room serving our guests the permission and the resources to just
Mhm.
come up with ideas where they could do cool stuff for the people they were serving. What that did, and maybe for those of the listeners that haven't read the book, let me just unpack that a little bit. We had a position on the team. It was called the Dreamweaver. That person's entire responsibility was to help everyone on the team bring their ideas to life. And so in the middle of service, anyone in the dining room could come up with any idea, and we had put a budget towards executing it and a budget towards paying this person to execute it on their behalf. And examples would have been finding out that the dad of a person joining us was more of a Budweiser and steak and potatoes guy than like champagne and caviar. And so the Dreamweavers turned our fancy champagne cart into a Budweiser cart by running to every bodega in the neighborhood and buying every bottled Bud they could find. Or it could mean learning that a couple had gotten married at City Hall because there was family drama and they couldn't have a proper wedding, and our private dining room was closed that night. And so we found out what their wedding song would have been, and we set up a moment in our private dining room at the end of their meal for them to have their first dance
Mhm.
properly. Um,
So good.
those were not my ideas. Those were the ideas of the people on my team. And there's two significant impacts that come from that. One, I'm giving authority to the people that actually have the information. No matter what service business you're in, you have an inability to impact the number of people that you're serving. You need to engage the people actually doing the serving in order to come up with the best ideas, because they are the ones that actually are interacting with the people. And by definition, they're the ones that actually know enough about the people to serve them in the way that those people
Mhm.
want to be served. But the other thing is that in embracing this culture, you're giving the people on your team agency. You're empowering them. They're no longer just serving a product that someone else created. They're imbuing that product with their own creativity. I have never in my life met a single person who won't give so much more of themselves to make something successful than when they have a genuine hand in designing what that thing is. I think when you look at like the flow of leadership over the years, back in the day, like Braveheart times, right? A great leader was just the person that had the confidence and conviction to say, this is where we're going, and
Mhm.
people would follow. Then over the years, that changed, and people wanted to know why they should follow you. They needed to be inspired to want to go to wherever that was. I believe things have evolved, and it's a generational thing, but I also just think it's a human thing that not only do we want to know where we're going and want to be inspired to want to go there, but people want to help determine how we're going to get there. I
Right.
believe that is quality leadership, to say this is where we're going, but invite the entire team to help design the roadmap. Um, People all over the world are struggling to either keep their teams fully staffed
Mhm.
or to orchestrate an environment where the people that work for them aren't burnt out.
Mhm.
And a lot of people are doing two things. They're paying people a little bit more and they're giving people a bit more time off. But that is treating the symptom, not the illness. The illness is that people are not motivated in their jobs. And I believe the best way to motivate them is to empower them to be a part of determining how they're getting to where you've decided you're trying to go, and to energize them with the beautiful gift of giving, because there is nothing more energizing than seeing the look on someone else's face when they receive a gift you're responsible for giving them. And if you give everyone on your team that feeling, it will transform the organization.
Wow, you've really hit the nail on the head, and that is really current, because I also think that too. I think that is exactly what's happening. People are getting paid a slightly more. It's a sweeter deal, and they're getting a lot more time off, whether it's summer Fridays or just flexibility in this sense. And yes, the question I have though in following this up, and this comes down to something you write about in the book around being, are you a coach or a player? That type of,
Mm.
what if you're worried about bringing your people on board because you know you could do their job better, and you're worried about losing control, and there's all of this kind of, it's you as the leader that has to actually like let go. And how does someone do that? If as you've so eloquently explained, and I also believe this to be true, that is the right way to go if you really want to build that team that's all in on your mission, that's playing full out, that's going for it.
There's two ways to answer it. I could answer from like the emotional perspective, which is you need to be willing to sacrifice a bit of control for your team to feel empowered. And if you understand that, you know, you're only one person, but if you can result in an entire team feeling empowered, that's going to, you know, maximize success or whatever. I could give a very compelling emotional answer to that question, or I could just respond with numbers. Let's say that in my restaurant, I made everyone who had an idea of something to do for one of our guests come to me, get my approval. I would represent a significant bottleneck in the process. And we would probably end up having done 100 gestures, and I would have approved of 100% of them.
All right.
By relinquishing control and not being a bottleneck, not only was my team empowered, and it's impossible for me to quantify the impact of that, but we did thousands of gestures. And maybe I only was proud of 95% of them, but just do the math. We made a lot more people happy. Now, that argument also assumes that I'm right all the time. And the 5% of the ideas that I didn't like are actually bad ideas. But I'm going to go back to that quote by David Marquet. They have the information. So they actually know better than me what is the right thing for that person. When I talk about genuine hospitality being one size fits one, they're the only ones equipped to come up with the idea because they're the only ones that actually know the person receiving the gesture. And so now let's do more math. Let's say of the 5% that I wouldn't have liked, half of that, 2.5%, are actually just bad ideas. They just did a bad job, right? Okay, I'm willing to accept that margin for error. And anyone who's ever bet on anything would accept that margin for error as well. And so, listen, I think like the cultural impacts are so vast there and calculable. But just from a numbers perspective, giving away responsibility will result in a scenario where you're positively impacting a whole lot more people. Not to mention the fact the more responsibility you give to the people on your team, the more responsible they become.
Did you get to that point of awareness through things like the hot dog story, when you saw those 4 people touring New York, going to all the best restaurants? They come to like 11 Madison Park, and you know, they were saying, hey, the only thing we haven't had is a hot dog from a streetcar outside. Did you, and then obviously you ran outside and you had to convince the chef to go and plate the thing and take it out, right? So was it through those experiences that you realized the impact that doing gestures like that could have, or was it through kind of trial and error and learning as the leader that you could touch more people's lives that way?
I mean, at that point, I learned years earlier from Danny Meyer. One of my favorite expressions of his is hospitality is a team sport. One's success is not defined by their own capacity, it's defined by the capacity of their team as a whole. The hot dog was a transformational moment for me when I realized the power of these one-off gestures. When I realized the power of putting just as much creativity into how we made the guest feel as we did into the product we were serving them. Scaling it when, I mean, the hot dog was my idea, I executed it. It was just me as the leader doing something cool. It was when I gave the permission and the resources to the entire team. That was the journey that we had to go on. And I mean, honestly, like, to the point of people doing things that you wouldn't have done, I think every time someone did something that I viewed as not appropriate, it represented an opportunity for education and inspiration and course correcting. And then every time someone did do something that I was so proud of, it represented an opportunity to celebrate them publicly and inspire their colleagues to follow suit. And so, no, the hot dog wasn't the moment when I realized the power of the team sharing responsibility. I knew that innately. The hot dog was when I fully understood how to focus our collective energy.
That was the penny drop moment. And you realized, yep, you could channel it. And that would, doing it across the board would bring focus to that exact part. And that exact part was what was going to create lasting memories and connection. Wow.
Yeah, you know, like, people don't collect things anymore. They collect experiences. And what the hot dog experience showed me is something that is actually, like, it's very intuitive and kind of obvious. And anytime you come up with an idea and it feels obvious, that means it's a pretty good idea. Is that we have an opportunity and a responsibility to give people stories that can help them relive the experience over and over and over again. Otherwise, it's not an experience worth collecting in the first place. I talk about unreasonable hospitality being the way that we can take ordinary transactions and transform them into extraordinary experiences. That does not come from excellence. It does not come from a more perfectly executed product. It comes from hospitality, and it comes from being just as creative and intentional and innovative and persistent in your pursuit of hospitality as you are in the product itself.
Impressive. I do feel like this is meant to be this conversation. I just realized that the last time I was in New York in October, I heard Danny Meyer speak. He came and did a talk. And then in February was when I finished your book in New York, and I had a peek in to 11 Madison Park. It was literally the day I was there. So I was like, this is brilliant. And there's just so much here that has drawn me in to this conversation that we're having today. I mean, even the fact that, like, your dad has been such a big mentor and inspiration to you. You know, he's taught you about integrity and hard work. And I see you come to these crossroads in the book a lot of times, and you're making these big decisions. Like, what was the impact of your father and having him there as that kind of person to bounce ideas off? And now you as a parent, what kind of advice would you give?
I mean, my dad, I'm so blessed to have the relationship with my dad that I do, and for him to bring the approach to mentoring me that he did. I mean, anyone who reads the book, like, someone actually called me afterwards and said, your dad should write a book. And I said, I think I've actually already used everything that he would have to say in my book. I think I've stolen his book because I talk about him constantly in the book, because it's impossible to overstate the outsized and asymmetrical role that he has played in my life. I think there's a lot of lessons there. One, just the power of mentorship. You're never too young to be a mentor, and you're never too old to have a mentor. I think that too many people get to a place where they feel like they have it figured out and they don't need to invite someone else to play that role for them any longer. But if you have someone who's so passionate about your journey that they're inclined to want to speak into it constantly, let them in, because more people around the table will always lead to better results. At the end of the day, it's your life. You get to make your own choices. But if you stop being open to the ideas of others, you're going to hold yourself back. And the point of mentorship, I understand that I'm lucky to have him, and that not everyone else has the kind of relationship with their mom or dad that I did. It was some adversity with my mom that led to that relationship having the strength that it has. But if you don't have someone like that in your life, and if it hasn't happened for you organically, that doesn't mean you can't go out and find it. Like, pursue mentorship, pursue relationships with the people you believe can make you your most fully realized self. Because, by the way, it's pretty flattering if someone asks you to be their mentor. And if you don't try, you'll never know what you could have accomplished.
That's very true. That's super cool. I think, yeah, mentorship is the way to go. In terms of, I love the Senate. I mean, I love so much about the language you use in the book, and, constant gentle pressure, and playing offense is, how to create a great experience, and playing defense is making the mistake right. And we have an opportunity and responsibility to create magic in the world that so desperately needs more of it. And can you talk us through about intention? Because I think intention is the word that is kind of layered throughout every stage of the book. And I'm sure that that's played a role in your life and goal setting.
For sure. Yeah, well, I mean, let's just talk about the intention in articulating your non-negotiables and your core values, and in the tenets of your culture that you want the entire team to embody. I think far too few people give or take the time to put words to the things they're aspiring to either embody or achieve. And words matter. In any organization, when you have a big team of people working with or for you, words are one of the most helpful tools you have to help ensure that everyone's always rowing in the same direction. And so just being intentional about appropriately articulating the things you stand for to ensure that your entire team stands for those things too is important. But there's also the restaurant per se, Thomas Keller's famous restaurant in New York City, which has always been an inspiration to me, whether as a worthy rival or even when I was coming up, just as something I one day aspired to emulate. I remember when they were first opening, it was in like a New York Times article, or maybe it was just urban legend, although it was true. They hired a ballet instructor to teach their dining room team. And the reason for that was that they wanted to make sure that everyone in the dining room understood how to be intentional about every single step they took when walking through the room. One of the things we would always say is, it's ballet, not football, right? Don't hurl yourself through the room. Like, decide where you're going to go and exactly how you're going to get there. They applied intention to movement. I'm talking about intention to articulating ideas. I think it was a big thing I learned from my dad, just the power of intention, deciding where you're going to go, and then being very intentional in deciding exactly how you're going to try to get there. People so often are surprised that things didn't go their way when they never really took the time to think about every one of the details that goes into how they were going to get there. And the more things you leave to chance, the less certain success is.
Do you think that played into your ability to be able to cope with or to create and pull off the difference between restaurant smart and corporate smart? When you were saying Danny Meyer, restaurant smarts, restaurant associates, corporate smarts, but merging the two is difficult.
Absolutely. I mean, it took intention at that time, my dad's intention, to ensure that I spent time working in both environments. Right. That was 100% me following my dad's playbook. Him saying there's two different types of companies. I need you to have spent time learning from each such that you can decide how you will one day choose to build your own. So it took intention in my career path.
Mm-hmm.
Understanding that for me to build the strongest foundation I could, I needed to not just take the coolest job where I was going to be paid the most money, but to find organizations that represented different elements of what I one day wanted to embody and learn from each one of them. And then once I had two buckets of experience, I almost became like a curator.
Mm-hmm.
Which elements of which am I going to choose to show in my gallery, right? Which will I choose to make a part of how I run my business? I'll also say that as you go through your career, intention can flex its muscles in the moments where you find yourself working for a company that you don't want to emulate, and being intentional about doing the opposite of what you saw them do. You can learn not just from the companies you want to emulate or from the people you want to emulate, but from the people that you don't want to emulate. You can learn, actually, in some cases, more from them.
That's huge. Yeah, there's power in having intention around what you don't want to be, and ensuring that you're staying away from it once you've learned the lesson, once you've done that. But then also having intention about, like you say, being the curator. I mean, there's so much artistry in the words that you use to choose. I love it. Switching gears slightly. So I see this a lot as well in business when I'm working with businesses. So what happens if you've got this top performer, you're a superstar, aka Felix, who's loved by clients? They're doing well. They're bringing in the money. They're selling. They're doing whatever they need to be doing. But when it comes down to that core mission and that buy-in of what you stand for as a culture, they have a destructive impact. Like, how as a leader should you be tackling that?
There is nothing more important than your culture. It is the most scalable thing you can invest in. If you build a quality culture, the impact that it has is endless, right? Like the ripples. It's like throwing a stone in the water and you see the ripples kind of that go out from it. No one individual, regardless of their impact to the bottom line, can ever be allowed to compromise that.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe that very, very strongly. Now, if we are doing our jobs as good leaders, and by the way, no one does 100% of the time, and that's okay. We will all make mistakes. The best leaders make emotional mistakes, and that's fine, as long as you have the humility to apologize and learn from them when you do. But when you fire someone, they should never be surprised, right? It means that you've been consistent about setting expectations and holding people to them. And at the moment you let someone go, they should not be surprised, because you should have given them many, many opportunities to correct whatever behavior you're addressing. But if someone Like any individual that is on a team, regardless of the size of the team, can have an outsized and asymmetrical impact on that team for better or worse. You hire an amazing person onto the team, they make everyone else better. You hire someone not good onto the team, it makes everyone else question why they're working so hard to be great. And if you allow someone to stay on the team because they're producing profit at the expense of culture, I mean, that is perhaps one of the worst things that you can ever communicate to your organization, that you care about money more than you do about the people.
Mm.
And by the way, if you have a good culture, the money always follows, right? And like no single earner, like if you get rid of a bad apple that's making a little bit more money, I guarantee you with time, the rest of the team will more than fill whatever gap was left behind.
Right. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Like they will step up and they'll respect that decision's happened because they're protective of that culture that you're creating, and they'll want to throw in more. They'll work harder because of it. Do you?
The higher up in the hierarchy you get, this is a Danny Meyer thing too. The bigger your megaphone becomes, your words and your actions are heard and seen by all. You can't tell people that you care about your culture and then allow someone who's deteriorating it to stay on just because they're a high performer when it comes to product or profit.
That's
like
super important.
It just shows that you just actually don't care.
Right.
You need to decide what right looks like, and that needs to define every decision you make. And the moment you start making exceptions is the moment that your team has an inability to trust you anymore.
And it's almost like, because your people are the most important part, if you're willing to make exceptions and lower your standard on the most important part, it sends the complete wrong signal out there. Like we see it all the time when we're accepting deals that are at a discount, or we do it because we need to get the revenue in, but this is being done to the people themselves, the very heart, the essence of the company. How do you think then you've got the other side of it, where you've got someone who's failing, but they're trying, like they're not performing to the standard, they're not able to make the move? And I know there's a couple of bits here. I mean, I have a ton of questions, but I know we're coming up on time. But like, just the idea of, I know when you took over the business, EMP, there was the old guard and there was the new guard, right? There was the old guard, the people that wanted to do things in a more casual way. They had the new team who knew what extraordinary service looked like, but they perhaps couldn't get there so quickly or bring the others up. So what happens? First question. No, this is a long one. People who are failing, there's a difference between how you handle those who are trying versus those that aren't actually trying. And then secondly, next question, what about when you know you've got to change, a bit like change management that we were talking about earlier, but you have this old existing team?
So there are two types of people that struggle with an organization: those that are trying but struggling, and those that are just not trying at all. And obviously the latter, you need to get them out as quickly as you possibly can, again, in a way where they're not surprised when that final conversation happens. The former, though, I mean, anytime you have someone who cares enough about the organization to give all of themselves to helping it succeed, you have a moral, if not professional, obligation to do everything in your power to help them succeed. And that might mean, like, just additional time to help train or mentor them, not dissimilar to when a teacher is doing like tutoring sessions with a struggling student outside of class. Or it could mean like looking at who they are and the job they're doing and recognizing whether they're in the right role to succeed in the first place. I talk about this in the book a lot. Like, great leaders get to know their teams because until you know someone well enough, you have an inability to help them succeed. And I've, on countless occasions, had someone who was struggling in one role be wildly successful in another role because I had hired them into the wrong position to begin with. And that's on me as much as it is on them, if not more. In terms of when you are transforming an organization, how you bring people along, well, again, it comes to being intentional about how you articulate things. I think far too often companies don't take the time to clearly communicate to the team exactly where they're going and invite people to join them on that journey. I think if you are making foundational changes to a company, being clear and concise with the team about what is changing and how they will be impacted by those changes, and as importantly, why you're making those changes and why they're changes that everyone should be excited about long term. That's step one. And then it's giving everyone the resources to succeed through that transition and the time to come along, and holding them accountable if they don't. And again, it goes back to the first question, whether it's because they're not trying or they're incapable. I talk about in the book how after I'd been at EMP long enough to really understand the entire picture, I had that talk where I communicated to my team, I will always make decisions based on what's best for the restaurant, not for any of you as individuals. And that's not because I don't care about you, but it's because the best way I know to take care of you is to take care of this place as an entire organization first. I communicated to them not only where we were going, but how I would make decisions. And then I tried as best I could, admittedly, with some failures along the way, to be consistent in embodying both of those things.
I think that speaks volumes, like just being able to outline that foundational piece that you've said there, and even explaining to a team, this is how I'm going to go about making decisions. This is what you can hold me accountable for, but then they know what to expect. And so, and like you say, you've got to be calling it out. If you've got a poor performer, there should be no surprise at the end of the journey when they're let go. A part of what
if your team is like happy with everything you ever say, then you're probably not doing your job very well. But they shouldn't be surprised. They should never be surprised.
So it's not the kind of blindsiding approach. It's the fact that, and it's not the kind of everything you're doing is amazing and awesome and I'm never going to get involved and get in the weeds. It's somewhere right down the middle that's pushing them.
Yes.
Yet there for them.
Yeah. I think so many organizations now are so focused on creating these positive work cultures that they've like amped up in considerable ways their focus on praising the people on their team, but they've left behind, I think, one of the most important things that a leader is there to do, which is to provide constructive criticism as well. If praise is affirmation, criticism is investment. And if you're building a team of A players, they want to improve and grow while they are with you. And praise reinforces good behavior, but in the absence of actually investing in people's growth, which comes from stepping outside of your comfort zone long enough to give them the constructive criticism they need to grow, I think we're only playing half the role of a leader.
I think you've hit on something really poignant there, Will. I think this is something that people can grab onto, especially all the leaders, all the business executives, anyone in a position of managing people can really look inside themselves and ask themselves that question. Are you doing what's easy and what gets you rewards and appreciation, or are you helping your team grow because growth comes from a place of uncomfort?
Yeah. Growth happens like when people are uncomfortable on both sides, like those moments of tension. Yeah.
It's not just pushing the coaching of that person. It's actually uncomfortable for the leader, and you should feel that because you know actually that's the space we need to lean into in order to be doing my job correctly.
I believe that with a really great leader, when a great leader walks into a room, people smile because they're happy to see that person. And they also stand up a little straighter because they don't want to let that person down. And if you are a leader and you're listening to this, like hold up a mirror and think about it. Honestly, when you walk into a room, are people smiling? Are they standing up straight? Are they doing just one of those two things? because unless both things are happening, you're not playing your entire role.
This is magic. This is magic. This is huge. This is huge. And I'm even looking inside myself right now going, look, I gotta sit down tomorrow and just have a think, because how are people responding to me when I walk in a room? Because it is very easy to get into these cycles. And, you, like you say in the book, we all spend a lot of time with the people we're working with. So then we start getting into different grooves and we actually take away from our mission and what we should be doing. But Will Guidara, I just want to be so respectful of your time. I know you've just had a new baby, and I know that this means the world to me. It's been a blessing just to communicate with you, with your team, to read your book, to now be actually coming full circle and to have this conversation with you. And I know that this will transcend just this conversation. I think it will move mountains in different ways. And I think anyone that grabs your book, like, get this book. I recommend it. I will forever be recommending this book. It's not often that a book hits me with the impact and the intensity that your book did. It blew me away on levels that I didn't know I had. And having written 4 books myself, I know it's challenged me to be more eloquent in the way that I am writing. It's challenged me to go out there and put intention behind my language, because the language creates culture, as you say. And I think, just thank you. Just thank you.
Oh, dude, thank you so much, man. Like, listen, you just filled my gas tank, and I mean that. That was really, really kind, and I loved the conversation, and I hope whoever decides to listen to this appreciates it. And also, the extent that anyone could hear my daughter playing and jumping around on the floor above me, I apologize for that, but
no, I think it's fine.
It brings me joy when I know that she is experiencing joy, and hopefully that came through in the conversation as well.
Absolutely.
You're the man. I hope I get to meet you in person one day.
That would be so cool. That would be so cool. I hope that happens. That'd be amazing. All right, Will, have a good day.
Thank you so much. Yeah, you too. Catch
you later.
Bye-bye.
Well, thank you so much for making the time. I know that you've just had a little one, so it's a lot going on, right? I completely get it. It's just nuts. I got 2 boys, so.
How old are they?
They're 1.5 and coming up to 6 years old. So, yeah, it's.
You have a little space between them.
There's a 4-year gap, but the little one is obviously trying to be 6 right now. So he like, just even today, like he bashed his front teeth. There was blood. And like, yeah, it's very boy in this household. There's lots of cars. There's lots of painting, just expression. Like, it's just very, yeah.
Isn't it the best though, man? I love it so much, man.
It is the best. It is the best. And I think it brings you as an individual to new levels, because you have to kind of go so far within, right, to be able to then give to them and keep giving, keep loving, keep being that guide in a way. It's a beautiful experience. I really do love it.
Yeah.
So how old's your little one now?
Well, so our older is 2 as of 2 days ago, and our younger is 1 month.
Okay. Wow.
And so
wow,
we're in it. But you know what I'll say is, like, having the second when the first one is 2 is like a master class on leading an organization through change.
It does. Yeah. The 2-year gap is fast, right?
Well, I mean, because like what I found is my principal role right now is to give attention to and love the 2-year-old, while also beginning to instill like some more consistent discipline and accountability in her life, like those 2 things kind of in equal measures. It's been great.
Which is a big deal. Yeah, no, it's cool. We're going through the same thing, just even with meal times right here with the 6-year-old, just trying to, like, you've got to be disciplined. You've got to understand what it is to sit at the table and do it properly. And at the same time, he needs so much love. right now. He just
Yeah.
needs so much love because his toys are being taken, broken, doing like,
Yes.
little ones doing all this stuff. And it's that middle ground between
I
accountability.
mean, it's not
structure.
dissimilar to what I talk about in the book, like the balance of excellence and hospitality. Like
Right.
those
Yes.
two things
Yes.
and pushing them in equal measures and understanding that one without the other is inadequate.
That's
Yeah.
it. And like, I love, I mean, we'll get into it in a minute, but like, I do love what you say in the book about you were doing things excellently, but there was that level of you were taking the best bits from all the different restaurants at the beginning and then wondering why you weren't winning best restaurant in the world, and you were doing them excellently, but you hadn't made the impact. You hadn't changed the game or whatever it was. And that it's like that piece as well, that surprise and delight that, it's just awesome.
Thank you, brother.
Okay, so we're at the end of the year. It's 2025, it's come to a close, and now you're reviewing the year. What I've got for you is an objection handling mastery course. This is going to help you elevate in 2026. This is the difference between going from average to world class. I'm going to show you the #1 way to master emotional control. When you're triggered, when you're frustrated, can you imagine what your life would look like if you could respond with clarity, leadership, and influence? Welcome to the Objection Handling Mastery course. This is how you're going to elevate in 2026 and get off to a flying start. I've put together this short course to make it happen for you. It's in 5 easy digestible modules that you can devour on a weekend and implement on Monday. This is the School of Success, my online learning platform that's going to help take you from average to world class.